Barack Obama rides into office on a wave of extraordinary public support with the highest approval ratings in 30 years. But Obama also faces high expectations, and the pressure is on to deliver once he gets into the Oval Office. John Jessup reports from Washington.
The opening act to President-elect Barack Obama's inauguration is winding down with unprecedented security to match the record crowds to make sure everything goes off without a hitch, like the party on the Mall Sunday.
You know you make me want to shout, get your hands up.
Before a star-studded pre-inaugural concert, Obama struck an optimistic yet guarded tone on the tough road ahead, knowing that the majority of Americans are worried about the economy and jobs.
Never forget that the true character of our nation is revealed not during times of comfort and ease, but by the right we do when the moment is hard.
An estimated 500,000 people turned out Sunday, and officials predict about 2 million people will be in Washington to watch Barack Obama be sworn in as the nation's 44th president. And the numbers reflecting public expectations of his first term in office are just as impressive. His personal popularity is higher than any president since Ronald Reagan. Meanwhile, 7 in 10 Americans in a recent ABC News Washington Post poll say Obama has a mandate for major new social and economic programs. The tough reality Obama faces after he takes office Tuesday is just how long that goodwill from his transition will carry over into his performance as executive-in-chief. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, John. Well, it's Martin Luther King's birthday, and this is the dream that Martin Luther King, when he said, "I have a dream," I don't know if he ever dreamt of an African-American being made president of the United States. But
interesting how these days are just matching each other here. Martin Luther King one day and the inauguration the next.
It's extraordinary, but the crowds are huge. And I tell you, Jesus was the only Messiah who could really deliver the goods. So if you make a human being into the Messiah, you're asking for trouble and you're putting an impossible burden on him. But in any event, we would call on everybody to pray for our upcoming president. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. Lee?
Pat, after declaring a ceasefire in Gaza this weekend, Israel now says its forces will be out of Gaza in time for Barack Obama's inauguration Tuesday. Chris Mitchell has that story from Jerusalem.
Israel's security cabinet voted for the unilateral ceasefire Saturday, and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert told the nation that the goals in Gaza had been achieved and that Israel would suspend its military operation if Hamas stops firing rockets into Israel. There's little doubt that Israel dealt Hamas a severe blow in Gaza, killing hundreds of its operatives and destroying many tunnels used to smuggle weapons. But some fear the military gains could be lost if Hamas is allowed to recoup and rebuild. Israeli opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu met Sunday with residents of Sderot, who have faced 8 years of Hamas rocket fire. He warned that Israel will have to contend with Hamas again.
Well, it's not over. It's very clear that the Hamas is still here and that we'll have to remove this threat. And I think facing this Hamas terror and Hezbollah terror and the backing of Iran, one thing we must not show is weakness.
Meanwhile, Hamas declared its own week-long ceasefire in order to allow Israel's military to leave Gaza. In a statement broadcast on Al Jazeera, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh declared a heavenly victory over Israel. It is clear Israel's leaders felt pressure to leave Gaza before the Obama administration takes over in Washington. Many Israeli soldiers believe their mission was incomplete because they are leaving without their comrade, Corporal Gilad Shalit, who was kidnapped in Gaza 2.5 years ago. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, what do you think? Did Israel accomplish its objectives?
No, it didn't. It's the same old story of probably pressure from the United States, like that's all you're going to get, so call a truce. Truce always prior to a peace treaty. I remember years ago meeting with Yitzhak Rabin. I said, "What do you want?" He said, "We want a peace treaty." But this isn't a peace treaty. It's a temporary cessation of hostilities, and they'll be back at it again. So I'm sorry to see it, but I felt that the Israelis would do something in the interim between the election and the time that Obama was sworn in. I thought they would hit the Iranian nuclear facilities. That didn't happen, so this was the next thing they had. but just prior to the swearing in of Obama, they're pulling out. Way short of victory. Lee?
The Obama transition team is considering setting up a government-run bank. The idea would be for the new bank to absorb the bad assets of troubled American banks that would then free up private banks to lend more money. The government bank would be funded by money from the $700 billion rescue fund, but some economists say another rescue package may be needed to have enough money to get the new bank going. Pat, what do you think about this plan?
Well, you know, they did the Resolution Trust Company under George Bush #1, and it was quite successful, but it was carefully thought out, and they really closed down. There was a savings and loans that were in trouble. They were closed down, and the assets were taken in and dispersed at a reasonable rate. This idea of just picking up toxic assets and dumping them all into one bank, I don't know whether it'll work or not. It may be better than some of the things they're talking about, but it's one more example where the United States is going to be pouring billions and billions and trillions of dollars into this rescue program, and it's a question of how long we can do it.